My name is Sophia, and I'm 35 years old. I'm sitting here in my pediatric clinic after hours staring at the family photo on my desk. 7 years of blood, sweat, and sacrifice built these walls around me. Every piece of equipment, every patient file, every penny of profit came from my own hands. Tonight, everything changed at my parents' dinner table. They came with legal documents hidden in Mom's purse, planning to take what was never theirs. Before I share what happened at that dinner table, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Please hit that like button and subscribe if family drama stories resonate with you. Trust me, what my family tried to pull will leave you speechless. Let me take you back to where this all began. Growing up in suburban Chicago, I learned early that love in the Harrison family came with conditions. My parents, Frank and Dorothy, made no secret of their preference for my younger sister, Madison. While I spent Friday nights memorizing anatomy textbooks, Madison was out spending their money at art galleries and wine tastings. They called her creative and free-spirited. They called me too serious. I worked 3 jobs during pre-med. The campus library at Northwestern, where I shelved books until midnight. The coffee shop that opened at 5 in the morning, where I served lattes to professors who would later grade my exams. The tutoring center on weekends teaching organic chemistry to struggling sophomores. Every dollar went toward textbooks, MCAT prep, and application fees. Meanwhile, Madison was discovering herself in Europe, funded entirely by our parents' credit cards. When I got into medical school, Dad's response was calculating the return on investment. Mom wondered aloud why I couldn't just marry a doctor instead. Madison got a new car that year for completing her second year of art school. She would eventually drop out and start over with photography, then graphic design, then finally interior decorating. Each career change came with parental funding and encouragement. Medical school nearly broke me, but not in the way they warn you about. Sure, the 100-hour study weeks were brutal. Living on ramen noodles and hospital cafeteria leftovers was degrading. But what really hurt was calling home after failing my first anatomy exam, sobbing into the phone and hearing Mom say she had to go because Madison was having a crisis about her professor not understanding her artistic vision. I needed a loan for my board exams, just $3,000 that I would pay back within 6 months. Dad laughed. Actually laughed. He said doctors make enough money that I shouldn't need help now. That same week, they paid for Madison's month-long photography workshop in Paris. She came back with 300 photos of doorways and a French boyfriend who lasted exactly 2 weeks. Residency was a special kind of hell. 100-hour weeks became my normal. I slept in call rooms that smelled like disinfectant and despair. My apartment was a glorified storage unit where I occasionally showered and changed scrubs. The attending physicians were demanding but fair. They pushed because they saw potential. My family pushed because they wanted bragging rights at country club dinners. My student loans hit $285,000. The number kept me awake during the few hours I should have been sleeping. Interest accumulated while I sutured lacerations at 3 in the morning. Madison lived rent-free in our parents' basement, turning it into what she called her creative sanctuary. She sold 1 painting that year, to our aunt, who felt bad for her. During my 3rd year of residency, the dream started taking shape. I wanted to open a pediatric clinic in an underserved neighborhood, somewhere that actually needed doctors, not another boutique practice in the suburbs. I spent my rare free hours researching locations, studying business plans, understanding insurance regulations. My colleagues thought I was insane. My family thought I was having a breakdown. I worked locum tenens on my days off. For those unfamiliar with medical terminology, that means I was a temporary doctor filling in at other hospitals. Instead of sleeping, I drove 2 hours to rural clinics. Instead of having a life, I covered night shifts in emergency departments. Every extra dollar went into my clinic fund. The savings account grew slowly, painfully, like watching grass grow in a drought. Sunday dinners at my parents' house became interrogations. Why wasn't I dating anyone? Why did I look so tired all the time? Why couldn't I be more like Madison, who had such a balanced life? Madison would sit there smiling, talking about her latest project that would definitely take off this time. I would sit there calculating how many more locum shifts I needed to afford an ultrasound machine. Dad's favorite phrase was, "Why not just work for a hospital, good benefits, stable hours, no risk?" He said it like I was choosing to make my life harder. Like opening my own practice was rebellion instead of ambition. Mom would nod along, adding how nice it would be if I could attend more family events instead of always working. Madison would chime in about work-life balance, a concept she perfected by not actually working. The planning consumed me. I studied successful clinics, failed clinics, everything in between. I learned about population demographics, insurance reimbursement rates, medical supply chains. My bedroom looked like a business school explosion. Charts covered the walls. Spreadsheets covered the desk. Medical journals covered the floor. Madison visited once, took one look, and asked if I was having a mental breakdown. She seemed disappointed when I said no. My fellow residents started placing bets on when I would give up the clinic idea. The smart money was on 6 months after graduation. They didn't understand that giving up wasn't an option anymore. This wasn't just about opening a clinic. This was about proving that the hundreds of hours, the missed holidays, the ramen noodles, all of it meant something. That I meant something. The location revealed itself during a rotation at County General. Southside Chicago. A neighborhood where the nearest pediatrician was 3 bus rides away. Where mothers missed work to take kids to overcrowded emergency rooms for basic checkups. Where preventable diseases thrived because prevention required access. This was where I belonged. Not in spite of the challenges, but because of them. My parents' reaction was predictable. Dad pulled up crime statistics. Mom cried about her baby working in such a dangerous area. Madison made jokes about bulletproof vests as a grand opening gift. None of them understood that danger wasn't gang violence. Danger was children dying from asthma because nobody taught their parents about trigger avoidance. Danger was teenagers becoming parents without ever learning basic health literacy. The final year of residency, I barely existed outside the hospital and my planning. Friends stopped inviting me places. Dating became a foreign concept. My world narrowed to patient care and spreadsheets. The attending physician who supervised me, Dr. Williams, pulled me aside one day. She said I reminded her of herself 20 years ago. Determined to change the world one patient at a time. She became my unofficial mentor, teaching me about the business side of medicine that medical school ignores. Madison announced her engagement that year. To an investment banker she'd known for 4 months. The wedding planning consumed every family dinner. Venues, flowers, dress fittings. The budget kept expanding. $50,000, $75,000, finally landing at $90,000. My parents paid without blinking. When I mentioned needing a business loan for my clinic, Dad suggested I wait until I was more financially stable. The irony was lost on him. The building appeared on a gray February morning. I was driving through Southside after a particularly brutal night shift, taking the long way home because sleep felt impossible. The abandoned medical office sat on the corner of 63rd and King Drive, windows boarded parking lot cracked like a dried riverbed. The for lease sign was so faded I could barely read the phone number. I pulled over and stared at it for 20 minutes. This was it. The landlord, Mr. Peterson, was 73 years old and tired of dreamers. He'd owned the building for 30 years, watched 3 medical practices fail, 2 restaurants close, and 1 community center run out of funding. When I called, he assumed I was another nonprofit looking for free space. When I showed up in person, he looked me up and down and asked if my husband was parking the car. When I said I was single, he actually laughed. The walkthrough was sobering. Water damage had created abstract art on the ceiling tiles. The electrical system belonged in a museum. Something had died in the walls, probably several somethings. The examination rooms were stripped to studs. The waiting area looked like a crime scene from a television procedural. Mr. Peterson kept saying, "as is condition," like a mantra, probably hoping I would leave. Instead, I measured every room, tested every outlet, photographed every damaged surface. The negotiation took 6 meetings. Mr. Peterson started at $3,000 a month, firm, no repairs. I countered with 1,500 with a renovation period. He laughed again, but this time nervously. I had done my homework. The building had been empty for 18 months. His property taxes were crushing him. Every month without a tenant was money hemorrhaging from his retirement fund. We settled at 1,800 with 3 months free for renovations. The renovation budget was a work of fiction. $20,000 to transform a disaster into a medical facility. Contractors looked at my plans and doubled their estimates, then tripled them when they saw the building. The first 3 walked out mid-consultation. The fourth, a recovering alcoholic named Tommy who was rebuilding his life and business, saw something in my desperation that reminded him of his own. He agreed to work within my budget if I could be flexible on timeline and help with labor. Discovering asbestos in the ceiling should have ended everything. The remediation alone would cost $15,000. I sat in my car outside that building and cried for 2 hours. Not gentle tears, but body-shaking sobs that fogged every window. A knock interrupted my breakdown. An elderly woman named Mrs. Washington, who lived across the street, handed me a tissue through the cracked window and said, "Whatever you're trying to do in that building, this neighborhood needs it. Don't give up now." I didn't give up. I couldn't afford professional asbestos removal, so I learned to do it myself. Legally, with proper certification. The class cost $800 and 3 weekends. The equipment cost another $1,000. Tommy and I spent 2 weeks in hazmat suits, carefully removing ceiling tiles while the summer heat turned the building into a sauna. We looked like astronauts exploring a particularly depressing planet. Madison visited during demolition. She arrived in designer heels that immediately stuck in the construction dust. Her horror was photogenic, perfectly staged for the Instagram story she was creating. "Playing doctor in the ghetto now?" she asked, wrinkling her nose at the smell of industrial disinfectant. She stayed exactly 12 minutes long enough to take selfies showing her supporting me, short enough to avoid actually helping. The electrical work nearly killed the project. The building needed complete rewiring to support medical equipment. The quotes ranged from $30,000 to $50,000. I found an electrician through a patient at the hospital, his uncle who owed him a favor. Miguel worked nights and weekends teaching me basic wiring as we went. I pulled cable through walls until my hands bled. I learned the difference between 110 and 220 voltage the hard way through a shock that threw me backward into unpainted drywall. Plumbing was another adventure in disaster. The pipes were original from 1953. They'd been patched so many times they looked like medical experiments. The first time we turned on the water, 3 walls became waterfalls. I spent my 29th birthday under a sink covered in rust-colored water, trying to stop a leak that seemed personally offended by my efforts. Tommy found me there at midnight, still working, and gently suggested I might need sleep. My credit cards became a juggling act. Balance transfers, introductory rates, payment schedules that required spreadsheet management. Medical equipment appeared piece by piece from liquidation sales, hospital auctions, online marketplaces. I drove 8 hours to Indiana for an examination table, 14 hours to Kentucky for an autoclave. Each trip happened on my days off, fueled by gas station coffee and determination. The nights sleeping on the clinic floor started as necessity and became ritual. I told myself it was to guard the equipment, but really it was about claiming the space, making it mine through presence and persistence. I had an air mattress in what would become my office, a hot plate in the future break room, a laptop balanced on cardboard boxes. Some nights I studied for board certifications. Other nights I painted walls until my arms ached. My parents found out about the sleeping arrangements when Madison told them. Their intervention was staged at Sunday dinner, complete with printed articles about burnout and mental health. They'd consulted their friend who was a psychiatrist. They were worried about my stability. Dad suggested selling the building and cutting losses. Mom offered to help me find a nice hospital position. Madison had already looked up openings at Northwestern Memorial. The city permit office became my second home. Every inspection found new problems. The bathroom wasn't ADA compliant. The exit signs were 2 inches too low. The medical waste disposal plan needed 17 revisions. Each correction cost money and time. The inspector, Mr. Chen, initially seemed determined to find violations. By the fourth inspection, he started offering suggestions instead of just citations. By the seventh, he brought coffee and said his daughter wanted to be a doctor. Finding medical supplies within budget required creativity. I haunted medical surplus stores like they were treasure hunts. Estate sales of retiring doctors became shopping sprees. I learned to repair equipment from YouTube videos and online forums. The examination table had 3 different colors of vinyl from patches. The otoscope was held together with surgical tape. Everything worked even if it wasn't pretty. 3 weeks before the planned opening, the roof started leaking. Not a small leak, but a catastrophic failure that flooded the main examination room. Everything I'd built, painted, installed was soaked. The drywall bubbled. The new flooring warped. I stood in 2 inches of water, watching months of work dissolve, and laughed. Not happy laughter, but the kind that prevents screaming. Tommy's crew rallied. Miguel brought his cousins. Mrs. Washington organized the neighborhood watch to help move equipment. We worked 72 hours straight, replacing drywall, installing new flooring, repainting everything. The community that my family said was dangerous showed up with food tools and labor. They didn't know me, but they knew need when they saw it. State licensing was its own special hell. The application was 47 pages. The supporting documentation was 300 pages. The first rejection came with 11 pages of deficiencies. The second rejection had 7. The third had 4. The fourth had 1 missing signature on one form that I'd filed 6 months earlier. Each rejection meant starting over, waiting, hoping. The 5th submission was approved 3 days before my planned opening. The final walkthrough happened at 2 a.m. alone, except for shadows and possibility. Every room represented a battle won. The waiting room painted soft yellow, because studies showed it reduced anxiety in children. The examination room, small but efficient, equipped with everything needed and nothing more. The laboratory space, basic but functional. My office barely bigger than a closet, but mine. All mine. Built with my own hands, my own money, my own will. Opening day arrived with December snow and 3 patients. 3. I'd advertised for weeks. Posted flyers in laundromats, grocery stores, bus stops. Walked the neighborhood introducing myself. Offered free consultations. 3 mothers brought their children, probably out of pity more than need. I treated those 3 like they were royalty. Full examinations, detailed consultations, follow-up plans that probably weren't necessary. They left with appointment cards for friends promising to spread the word. The first month I averaged 5 patients a day. Revenue was $1,200. Expenses were $8,000. The math was devastating. I performed every role in the clinic. Doctor in the morning, receptionist at lunch, janitor at night. The phone rarely rang. When it did, I answered with professional enthusiasm that masked desperation. Most calls were telemarketers or wrong numbers. Each real patient felt like a miracle. Building trust in the community required more than medical expertise. These families had been failed by systems for generations. They'd been experimented on, dismissed, overcharged, undertreated. I wasn't just another doctor. I was another white doctor in a black neighborhood asking for trust I hadn't earned. The skepticism was justified. History had taught them that medical care came with catches, conditions, consequences. Saturday free clinics became my bridge building. No insurance required, no questions asked beyond medical necessity. The first Saturday, 7 patients came. The second, 15. By the 6th week, I had 43 patients lined up before opening. Word spread the way truth does in tight communities through whispered recommendations at bus stops and confirmations at grocery stores. The white lady doctor who didn't judge, didn't rush, didn't require payment up front. Week 8 brought Madison asking for money. Not asking exactly, presenting an opportunity for me to invest in her latest venture, a boutique design consultancy that existed primarily in her imagination. She needed $5,000 for workspace rental materials marketing. She'd prepared a presentation complete with projected returns that assumed immediate success. When I explained I was operating at a loss, she accused me of being selfish. Family helps family, she said. I wondered where that philosophy was during my ramen years. The insurance companies treated me like a criminal. Claims denied for missing commas. Prior authorizations required for aspirin. Payment delays that stretched 60, 90, 120 days. I spent entire nights on hold with representatives who didn't care that their delays meant I couldn't pay rent. The system was designed to exhaust small practices into submission. Every approval felt like winning a lottery with terrible odds. Maria walked in during month 3. She wasn't looking for medical care but employment. A medical assistant with 15 years' experience fired from her last position for advocating too strongly for patients. Her interview consisted of helping me manage a waiting room of sick children while the computer system crashed. She stayed until midnight helping me document visits on paper. I couldn't afford her salary. She said she'd work for half until the clinic could pay full. Angels sometimes wear scrubs instead of wings. The computer crash in month 4 almost ended everything. The electronic medical record system I couldn't afford, but couldn't operate without corrupted during an update. 3 months of patient records vanished. The backup system I also couldn't afford hadn't been configured correctly. Tech support suggested starting over. Starting over meant losing trust, credibility, possibly licenses. I found paper backups in my car trunk, coffee-stained and crumpled but readable. Maria and I spent 3 days reconstructing every visit, every prescription, every vaccination. Local gang members started testing boundaries around month 5. Not threatening exactly, but present. Watching who came and went. Making their existence known. I treated one of their girlfriend's children for severe asthma, spent 2 hours explaining triggers and treatments. Word got back to someone who mattered. The presence shifted from intimidation to protection. Nobody said anything directly, but the clinic became understood as off-limits. The broken window that appeared one morning was fixed by afternoon, no questions asked. Month 6 brought the first profitable week. $800 after expenses. Maria and I celebrated with Chinese takeout in the empty waiting room, toasting with paper cups of grape juice from the pediatric supply. She cried when I gave her a raise to 3/4 of her worth. I cried when she said the clinic was the first place she'd felt valued in decades. We both pretended the tears were from the spicy food. My parents never visited. They had elaborate excuses involving traffic safety scheduling conflicts. But they told everyone about their daughter, the doctor. The successful one. The one making a difference. They just forgot to mention they'd never seen where the difference was being made. Madison came once more, bringing her new boyfriend who needed directions to somewhere else. She used the bathroom and complained about the soap brand. Fighting insurance companies became a part-time job within my full-time job. Prior authorization appeals claim resubmissions, payment reconciliations. Each company had different requirements, different forms, different definitions of medical necessity. A child's inhaler required 17 documents. A basic antibiotic needed pre-approval. The system seemed designed to exhaust doctors into giving up. I learned to weaponize persistence. The supply closet crying sessions happened weekly. Sometimes from exhaustion, sometimes from frustration, sometimes from the weight of witnessing poverty's impact on children's health. Seeing babies with preventable developmental delays. Teenagers with untreated depression. Mothers choosing between insulin and groceries. The crying was private, brief, necessary. Then back to work because the waiting room was full and getting fuller. 18 months in the tide shifted. The day I realized we'd made it was ordinary. Full schedule, normal problems, standard chaos. But the phone rang constantly with appointments, not collections. The waiting room stayed busy without free clinic hours. Parents recommended us to others without prompting. We weren't just surviving. We were succeeding. The impossible had become inevitable through sheer refusal to quit. Year 3 brought transformation. The local news story about our weekend immunization drive wasn't supposed to be significant. A 90-second segment on the Sunday evening broadcast featuring Maria administering vaccines while I explained the importance of childhood immunizations. But something about the image of dozens of families lined up for basic health care resonated. The video went viral Monday morning. By Wednesday, my voicemail was full and appointment requests crashed our online system. The attention brought resources I'd never imagined accessing. Grant applications that had been ignored were suddenly approved. Medical equipment companies offered demonstration models that mysteriously never needed returning. Pharmaceutical representatives, who'd never returned calls, started arriving with sample closets full of medications. Success, it seemed, attracted success in ways that struggle never could. Dr. James Park joined us after his residency at University of Chicago. He'd seen the news story and drove down unannounced wearing a $1,000 suit that looked absurd in our waiting room. He was brilliant credentialed and could have worked anywhere. He chose us because, as he said, real medicine happens where it's needed most, not where it pays most. His salary requirements were half what hospitals offered. His impact was invaluable. The Childhood Obesity Prevention Program started as Maria's idea. She'd noticed the correlation between food deserts and our diabetes cases. We applied for a Gates Foundation grant with low expectations. Competing against major hospitals and research institutions seemed futile, but our data was compelling. Our community trust was established. Our need was undeniable. The approval letter came with $200,000 and technical support we desperately needed. Madison's sudden interest coincided with the grant announcement. She appeared at the clinic for the third time ever carrying a portfolio of marketing materials she'd designed without request. Business cards with her name as creative director. Website mock-ups that missed our mission entirely. Social media strategies focused on affluence we didn't serve. She'd already told people she was handling our marketing collecting congratulations for her charitable contribution to my little project. The expansion happened organically. First, the empty office next door became available when the tax service closed. Then the one beside that when the beauty supply store relocated. Mr. Peterson, now our biggest supporter, offered package deals that respected our budget. We grew room by room, wall by wall, knocking through barriers both physical and metaphorical. Each new examination room meant shorter wait times, better service. More children helped. My parents started their campaign of sudden involvement around the 4th year. They attended the fundraising gala uninvited, but welcomed telling everyone they'd supported the clinic from the beginning. Dad cornered donors with stories about my childhood determination that he'd actually discouraged. Mom claimed credit for my compassion while forgetting the years she'd called me cold for prioritizing studying. Their rewriting of history was masterful. The American Medical Association journal feature changed everything. A peer-reviewed article about innovative community health approaches in underserved populations sounds boring, but it meant legitimacy in circles that mattered. Suddenly, medical schools wanted our residents. Conferences requested presentations. Other communities sought consultation. We weren't just a clinic anymore. We were a model. The city awards ceremony was surreal. Standing on a stage accepting recognition for community service while my parents sat in the front row they'd purchased at premium price. Madison Liv tweeted the event hashtagging family pride she'd never felt. The mayor mentioned the clinic's origin story, the young doctor who risked everything. My parents beamed like they'd been part of that risk instead of arguing against it. Reaching 12 employees felt like commanding an army. Each hire was strategic, careful, considered. Nurses who understood our mission. Administrative staff who treated poverty with dignity. Cleaning crew who took pride in maintaining safe spaces. Every person chosen for competence and compassion in equal measure. Maria became office manager, a title that didn't capture her actual role as the clinic's heart. The financial transparency my parents suddenly demanded was wrapped in concern. They needed to ensure the clinic's stability, protect my interests, guide business decisions with their accumulated wisdom. Dad started sentences with, As a successful businessman, forgetting his success came from inheritance. Mom offered to review our books, though she'd never balanced a checkbook. Madison suggested hiring her as a consultant, her expertise unclear, but her rate precisely defined. Strange questions started appearing in casual conversation. Who owned the building now? What was our succession plan if something happened to me? How were assets protected? Were there partnership opportunities? Did I have adequate insurance? The questions felt like reconnaissance gathering intelligence for future maneuvers. I answered vaguely, changed subjects, started limiting information shared at family dinners. Madison's divorce provided cover for escalating financial requests. Her ex-husband, the investment banker, had hidden assets. Legal fees were mounting. She needed temporary support. Could the clinic hire her part-time consulting work, nothing demanding? Her skills in areas we definitely needed, though she couldn't specify which. The requests came through Mom, delivered with guilt about family obligation and reminders about Madison's fragile emotional state. Dr. Park noticed the pattern before I admitted it. The way my shoulders tensed when my phone showed family calls. The careful phrasing when discussing clinic ownership. The hesitation before sharing good news that might trigger more requests. He'd escaped similar family dynamics, understanding how success makes you a target for those who confuse love with entitlement. His validation meant everything. The expansion to mental health services was natural progression. Treating children's physical health while ignoring trauma was incomplete medicine. We partnered with therapists who understood cultural competence, social workers who navigated systems instead of judging circumstances, counselors who recognized resilience in communities written off as broken. The holistic approach drew more grants, more recognition, more family interest. Our 6th year started with opening a second location in Englewood. The ribbon cutting drew media attention, political figures, healthcare executives. My parents stood prominently in every photo, their matching outfits coordinated for maximum visibility. Madison managed to position herself next to the Commissioner of Public Health, their photo appearing in business sections with captions about family medical enterprises. The narrative was shifting without my consent. The invitation arrived on clinic letterhead I didn't recognize. Madison had designed it professional and presumptuous. A family dinner to discuss the clinic's future and everyone's role in its continued success. The date was set for Thursday evening, no consideration of my schedule. The location was my parents' dining room, neutral ground for what was clearly planned as negotiation. The RSVP was assumed. I drove there straight from a 16-hour shift, still wearing scrubs under my winter coat. The house glowed with strategic lighting, every window perfect like a magazine spread. Madison's car was already there, a new Mercedes she couldn't afford but somehow acquired. The driveway felt longer than usual, each step heavy with premonition. I knew this wasn't dinner. This was ambush. Walking in the staging was obvious. Madison had her laptop, open folders arranged, color-coded tabs visible. She wore a business suit I'd never seen, playing a role she'd rehearsed. Mom's nervous energy manifested in excessive table setting, china and crystal, for what should have been casual Thursday dinner. Dad stood at his position by the fireplace, owner of the domain, master of ceremonies, for whatever performance they'd planned. The small talk was painful. How was the clinic? Busy. Any interesting cases? Always. The weather certainly had been unpredictable. Indeed. Each exchange was placeholder killing time until the main event. Madison kept checking her phone, probably timing when to begin. Mom repeatedly adjusted silverware that didn't need adjusting. Dad swirled his whiskey with practiced authority. The appetizers were props nobody touched. Expensive cheese and crackers arranged like art while tension filled every bite not taken. Mom kept insisting I eat something, knowing I couldn't swallow past the knot in my stomach. Madison picked at olives while scrolling through her presentation one more time. Dad cleared his throat repeatedly, a tell from childhood that preceded important announcements. Finally, Madison stood. She'd prepared a presentation about clinic optimization. Slides appeared on her laptop, rotated so everyone could see. Market analysis she'd Googled. Growth projections based on nothing. organizational charts with new positions, notably executive director with her name already inserted. She spoke with confidence borrowed from YouTube videos about entrepreneurship. Every slide was another violation of boundaries I hadn't known needed defending. The financial projections were fantastical. Revenue doubling within 6 months under her management. Costs reducing through efficiencies she couldn't define. Profit margins that ignored the reality of serving uninsured populations. She'd created a business plan for a clinic that existed only in her imagination, replacing the actual one I'd bled to build. Mom's contribution was emotional manipulation disguised as concern. The clinic was too much for one person. Family businesses were stronger. Madison needed stability after her divorce. Wasn't it time I considered work-life balance? The words came rehearsed, probably practiced in the mirror. She reached for my hand across the table, a gesture of connection that felt like capture. Dad's speech was masterful in its presumption. He spoke about legacy using words like fiduciary and stakeholder. The clinic wasn't just mine anymore, it belonged to the community. It needed proper governance, a board of directors to guide major decisions. Family members who understood the vision because they'd watched it develop. He'd already consulted his lawyer about structural recommendations. Then came the documents. Legal papers pulled from Mom's purse with ceremony. Madison had tabs marking signature lines. The management restructuring proposal was 16 pages of legal language that basically stole my clinic with a pen instead of a gun. Madison would become executive director at $70,000 annually. My parents would be compensated board members. 25% of profits would go to Madison for brand development and strategic planning. I read it slowly, every word confirming betrayal. They'd spent money on lawyers to take what I'd built alone. The document referenced assets they'd researched, contracts they'd investigated, financial projections they'd somehow accessed. This wasn't spontaneous. This was orchestrated, planned, potentially months in preparation. The silence while I read was suffocating. Madison tapped her nails, a nervous habit from childhood. Mom twisted her wedding ring round and round like a prayer wheel. Dad stood perfectly still, waiting for capitulation he considered inevitable. They all watched me like vultures waiting for something to die. Their arguments came prepared. Family helps family. We sacrificed everything raising you. Madison needs this opportunity. The clinic could benefit from our experience. You can't do everything alone forever. Think about the tax advantages. Consider the succession planning. Don't be selfish. Remember where you came from. We deserve this. I reached for my briefcase, the same one I'd carried since residency. Worn leather with a broken clasp held closed with a binder clip. Inside were patient files I'd been reviewing, but also something else. The clinic's incorporation documents carried always because paranoia had become habit. I found the section I needed marked long ago by my lawyer, who understood family dynamics from her own experience. Clause 4.3 was beautiful in its simplicity. Any attempt to alter management structure without founder approval triggered immediate dissolution. Assets would be liquidated and donated to charity. No exceptions, no loopholes, no negotiations. I'd insisted on this clause despite the lawyer's warnings about inflexibility. Now I understood why my gut had been right. I read it aloud slowly, watching comprehension dawn on each face. Dad froze mid-reach for his whiskey. His mouth opened, but no words came. The lawyer he'd consulted hadn't seen the incorporation documents, just assumed standard structures. Madison's face crumbled like wet tissue, her presentation suddenly meaningless. Mom started crying, but not pretty tears. Ugly, shocked sobs that smeared her makeup. Madison found her voice first shrill and accusatory. You planned this. You knew we'd try to help, and you sabotaged it. The reversal was stunning. I was the villain for protecting what I'd built. She stood up so fast, her chair fell backward, laptop crashing to the floor. You're sick. You're actually sick. Who does this to family? Dad's anger was quieter but deeper. He threw the documents across the table pages, scattering like accusations. After everything we've done for you, the home we provided, the education we supported. This is how you repay us. His face turned the purple red that preceded his worst rages. You're not the daughter we raised. I stood slowly collecting my briefcase. Name one thing, I said quietly. Name one single thing you did for my clinic. $1 you invested, 1 hour you worked, one patient you referred. Name one thing that gives you any right to what I built. The silence stretched. Mom's sobs filled it, but no answers came. Because there were none. They'd done nothing except doubt, criticize, and wait for success to claim. I walked out while Madison screamed about betrayal and selfishness. While Dad threatened legal action he couldn't take. While Mom wailed about family torn apart. I walked out of that house and felt nothing but relief. The door closed on 35 years of conditional love, and I didn't look back. The voicemail started before I reached my apartment. 43 by morning. Dad's threats of disownment, as if that was punishment instead of freedom. Mom's guilt trips about her health, her heart, her broken dreams for family unity. Madison's rage incoherent and increasingly desperate. Extended family recruited for intervention, leaving messages about disappointment and selfishness. Madison's social media campaign was immediate and vicious. Facebook posts about family betrayal. Instagram stories about toxic siblings. Twitter threads about successful women who forget their roots. She painted herself as victim abandoned by a sister drunk on success. The narrative gained traction among people who didn't know the whole story. Comments poured in supporting poor Madison condemned heartless Sophia. The extended family chose sides predictably. Aunt Carol called to explain how hurt Madison was, how I should reconsider. Uncle Robert sent an email about family obligation that read like a legal brief. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly had opinions about my character. The gossip spread through family networks like wildfire, each retelling adding embellishments. I'd kicked Madison while she was down. I'd laughed at my parents' pain. I'd chosen money over blood. The clinic became my refuge. Patients noticed something different but didn't pry. Maria simply hugged me one morning and said family was who showed up, not who showed up for something. Dr. Park rearranged schedules so I could focus on patient care instead of administration. The staff created a protective circle without being asked, screening calls, intercepting surprises, maintaining sanctuary. Then my parents appeared at the clinic. Tuesday morning, peak hours, waiting room full of families. They demanded to speak with me privately about urgent family business. When I refused, Dad's voice rose, attracting attention. Mom started crying again, telling anyone who'd listen about ungrateful children. Security had to escort them out while Madison filmed from the parking lot, content for her persecution narrative. The legal consultation confirmed what I already knew. The incorporation documents were airtight. The clause was enforceable. Their claims had no merit. But the lawyer warned about harassment potential, suggested restraining orders if behavior escalated. She'd seen family business disputes turn violent. She recommended changing locks, installing cameras, documenting everything. Paranoia was just preparation now. Madison somehow acquired a key. I arrived one morning to find her in my office photographing financial documents. She claimed she'd left something there, though she'd only visited 3 times. The key was copied from one I'd given Mom years ago for emergencies. Changing locks became immediate priority. Security protocols expanded. Trust became luxury I couldn't afford. The Thanksgiving situation was predictable, but still painful. Disinvitation came via email from Dad's account but written in Mom's voice. I was no longer welcome at family gatherings until I reconsidered my position. Madison needed their support during her difficult divorce. My selfishness was tearing the family apart. The choice was mine. Conform or exile. I spent Thanksgiving at the clinic, not working, just existing in space I'd created. Chinese takeout eaten at my desk while reviewing patient files. The emptiness was peaceful compared to the performance of family dinners past. No judgment about my appearance. No comparisons to Madison's achievements. No subtle reminders of disappointment. just quiet and the knowledge that Monday would bring children who needed help. Christmas cards returned unopened hurt more than expected. Not the rejection, but the pettiness. Mom's handwriting on the return label, careful cursive saying nobody by that name at this address. The symbolism wasn't subtle. I'd been erased from the family narrative written out of their history. Madison probably helped rewrite the story, making herself the only daughter worth claiming. Random encounters became ambushes. The grocery store where Mom confronted me about breaking her heart. The coffee shop where Madison's friend called me heartless. The gym where Dad's golf buddy suggested I needed therapy for my anger issues. Each interaction carefully staged for maximum public impact. They wanted witnesses to my cruelty validation for their victimhood. Local Pastor Williams reached out gently. He'd heard about the family situation through congregation gossip. He offered counseling mediation prayer. His concern was genuine, but his solution assumed reconciliation was the goal. Some relationships aren't meant to be repaired, I explained. Some breaks are necessary for survival. He seemed sad but said he'd pray for peace, which was really all I wanted. The anonymous donation arrived in January. $250,000 designated for pediatric mental health services. The note was simple. From someone who understands family betrayal. Build something beautiful from the ashes. No name, no return address. But the check cleared. Later investigations suggested it came from a tech executive who'd been disowned for marrying outside her culture. Success, it seemed, attracted solidarity from unexpected sources. Madison's art gallery opened and closed within 3 months. The announcement was elaborate, the failure quiet. She'd convinced investors that her clinic management experience qualified her for any business venture. When it collapsed, she blamed the economy, the location, the marketing, everything except her complete lack of preparation. Mom called crying, asking if the clinic had any positions available. I suggested McDonald's was hiring. The second clinic location thrived without family interference. Every success felt cleaner, earned entirely without their shadow. New staff didn't know the family history saw me as Dr. Harrison, who built something from nothing. Patients didn't care about personal drama, only that their children received quality care. The community embraced what we offered without needing to know what I'd sacrificed. Running into Dad at Whole Foods was inevitable. Same neighborhood, same routines. He looked older, grayer, smaller somehow. He started to speak probably prepared words about reconciliation. I walked past like he was a stranger because essentially he was. Someone I'd known once but didn't anymore. His calling after me echoed through produce, but I kept walking. Mom tried reaching out through my childhood friend Sarah, who she'd accidentally run into at the mall. The message was about forgiveness moving forward Madison's struggles, Dad's health. Sarah delivered it reluctantly, adding that she thought they looked desperate. Desperate for what I wondered. My money, my success, my submission, none were available. 6 months later, the clinic had never been stronger. The second location was exceeding projections, serving families who'd previously traveled hours for basic pediatric care. We'd hired 4 new doctors, each believing in our mission of accessible healthcare. The mental health program was expanding the anonymous donation funding therapists who understood generational trauma. Every metric showed growth, sustainability, success. Opening the third location wasn't planned but became necessary. The West Side community had been begging for services, organizing petitions, attending city council meetings. When the opportunity arose to purchase an abandoned pharmacy, the board I'd assembled of actual healthcare professionals and community leaders unanimously approved. No family drama, just strategic decision-making based on community need and financial viability. Madison's latest venture was apparently life coaching. Her website promised to help women overcome family trauma and build independent success. The irony was magnificent. She was charging $300 per session to teach what she'd never learned. Mom promoted it on Facebook, calling Madison an inspiration for overcoming adversity. The adversity, presumably, was not getting my clinic. Dr. Park brought his family for Sunday dinners at my townhouse. His wife was also a physician who understood the peculiar isolation of medical families. Their twin daughters called me Aunt Sophia, filling a space I hadn't known was empty. We created traditions based on choice, not obligation. Korean barbecue instead of mom's dry turkey. Board games instead of interrogations. Laughter that wasn't performed. Maria's son graduated from medical school that spring. She'd raised him alone, working multiple jobs before finding stability at our clinic. Watching him receive his diploma, knowing our clinic had provided the health insurance and stability that made his education possible, felt like coming full circle. He'd already committed to returning, serving the community that raised him. Legacy through love, not blood. The mentorship program started organically. Medical students began reaching out, wanting to understand how to build independent practices. Young women especially facing family pressure to choose safe traditional paths. I shared everything: the business plans, the legal structures, the emotional boundaries necessary for survival. Most importantly, I shared Clause 4.3, the protection that saved everything. Creating the scholarship fund felt like redemption. Full tuition for first-generation medical students committed to serving underserved communities. No strings, no board positions for donors, no naming rights. Just opportunity for those who, like me, had more ambition than support. The first recipient was a young woman from the neighborhood whose mother cleaned offices at night. She cried when we called, and so did I. Mom reached out one last time through a lawyer. Not for legal action, but for what she called closure. She wanted to meet, to understand, to heal. The letter was professionally written, but emotionally manipulative, referring to lost years and maternal love. I had my lawyer respond that closure isn't owed, understanding isn't required, and healing happens independently. The finality felt like freedom. The awards kept coming. State recognition for community health innovation. Federal grants for preventive care programs. Medical schools sending residents to learn our model. Each achievement was shared with the people who actually supported the journey. Maria, who worked for half pay when I couldn't afford more. Dr. Park, who chose mission over money. Tommy, the contractor who built dreams from disasters. Mrs. Washington, who handed tissues through car windows. Madison appeared at a medical conference where I was keynote speaker. She sat in the front row, probably hoping for acknowledgement or confrontation. I delivered my presentation about building sustainable community health models without ever looking at her. During the Q&A, she stood to ask about family involvement in medical practices. I answered generically about the importance of professional boundaries and moved to the next question. She left during the standing ovation. The pediatric residency program we established attracted top graduates. They came to learn not just medicine, but mission. How to see past poverty to potential. How to treat parents as partners, not problems. How to build trust in communities conditioned for disappointment. They learned that medicine wasn't just about healing bodies, but rebuilding communities one child at a time. Dad sent a birthday card on my 36th birthday. Inside was a check for $50,000 and a note about investing in my future. The audacity was breathtaking. He was trying to buy his way into success he'd refused to support. I donated the check to the scholarship fund in Madison's name, ensuring she'd receive the tax acknowledgement. The thank you letter from the foundation to her was probably confusing. Running into childhood friends became opportunities for truth. They'd heard the family version about my cruelty and ingratitude. I'd simply say, success requires sacrifice, and change the subject. But some pressed, wanting to understand. For them, I'd explain that family isn't about blood but behavior. That love shouldn't require payment. That sometimes the greatest gift you can give yourself is distance from those who see your success as their opportunity. The neighborhood transformed around the clinic. Property values increased. New businesses opened. Crime decreased. City planners called it revitalization, but locals called it the clinic effect. When communities have healthcare, hope follows. When children are healthy, families stabilize. When investment is genuine, not exploitative, neighborhoods thrive. We hadn't just built a clinic. We'd rebuilt belief in possibility. The final encounter with my family was anticlimactic, all three at a charity gala I was honored at. They sat at a purchased table, watching me receive recognition for community service. I thanked everyone who'd contributed to the clinic's success, named specific supporters, told specific stories, shared specific gratitudes. None involved them. The omission was louder than any confrontation. They left during dessert. I built something from nothing, not from spite or revenge, but from necessity and vision. The clinic stands as testament to what's possible when you stop waiting for support that isn't coming. Every child treated, every family served, every community program launched happened because I stopped believing that family meant automatic alliance. Some of us have to build our own foundations because the ones we're born into are too weak to support our weight. The success isn't about the money, though financial stability finally exists. It's not about the recognition, though. Professional validation matters. It's about Tuesday mornings when the waiting room fills with families who trust us with their children. It's about Maria humming while she works, because this job gave her purpose. It's about Dr. Park bringing his daughters to see where Daddy helps kids feel better. It's about the scholarship recipient who sends updates from medical school promising to pay it forward. Some people get family support. Others get family lessons. Both can build foundations, just different kinds. Mine is built on broken relationships that taught me strength, empty promises that taught me self-reliance, conditional love, that taught me to create unconditional service. The clinic stands because I stopped looking backward for approval and started looking forward to impact. My real family wears scrubs and carries stethoscopes. They show up at 7 a.m. ready to serve communities that others abandoned. They stay late because a scared child needs extra comfort. They celebrate small victories like successful vaccinations and controlled asthma. They never once asked for what they didn't earn, never claimed credit they didn't deserve, never assumed ownership they didn't build. Success without family support isn't lonely. It's liberating. Every achievement belongs entirely to those who earned it. Every milestone reflects actual contribution, not inherited privilege. The clinic thrives because it was built on merit, not manipulation. It serves communities that understand struggle, staffed by people who understand service, led by someone who understood that sometimes the family you're born into is just the lesson you need to build the family you choose. That dinner with legal documents taught me everything. Not about business or law or even family. It taught me about worth. That some people see your success as their retirement plan. That blood relation doesn't prevent exploitation. That the highest walls you need aren't around your building but around your boundaries. The clause that saved my clinic wasn't just legal protection. It was proof that I'd learned to protect myself before anyone else could harm what I'd built. Looking back, the pattern was always there. Every struggle I faced alone while Madison was rescued. Every achievement dismissed while her failures were cushioned. Every sacrifice I made invisible while her needs were centered. They trained me to expect nothing from them, then were shocked when I built everything without them. The irony is perfect. Their neglect taught me independence. Their favoritism taught me resilience. Their dismissal taught me determination. The clinic's mission statement hangs in every room: healthcare is a human right, not a family privilege. Patients think it's about insurance and access. Staff thinks it's about social justice. But I know it's about more. It's about building something so pure in purpose that exploitation becomes impossible. It's about creating value that can't be claimed by those who didn't contribute. It's about proving that the best revenge against those who doubted you isn't proving them wrong. It's forgetting they exist. So that's my story. A girl who wanted to be a doctor became a woman who built a medical empire. Not with family support, but despite family sabotage. Not through inherited privilege, but through exhausted persistence. The clinic stands as monument to everyone who was told they couldn't, shouldn't, wouldn't make it. We did. We do. We will. And to those watching who recognize their own family and mine, who see their own struggles in this story, who wonder if they can build without support, let me tell you something you can. It will be harder. It will be lonelier. It will test every limit you thought you had. But what you build will be entirely yours, untainted by obligation, uncomplicated by manipulation. Your success will be clean, earned, undeniable. That's the gift hidden in neglect. When nobody helps you, nobody owns you. When family fails you, you're free to choose your own. When support doesn't come, strength does. The clinic that started with 3 patients now serves thousands. The woman who slept on floors now mentors doctors. The family that tried to steal what they never supported. They're just a story I tell to remind myself how far I've come from where I started. If you've made it this far in my story, you probably understand family complications more than most. Maybe you're building something alone too, wondering if it's worth the isolation. Maybe your family is waiting for your success to claim their share. Maybe you're protecting your dreams with your own version of Clause 4.3. Whatever your situation, I want you to know your work deserves protection, your boundaries deserve respect, and your success belongs to nobody but you. What boundaries have you had to set with family to protect your dreams? Have you ever had to choose between family expectations and personal success? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real stories about building success against all odds. Share this with someone who needs to hear that family isn't always support, but that doesn't mean you can't succeed. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, sometimes the best family is the one you build yourself, one patient, one employee, one believer at a time. Stay strong, protect what you build, and never apologize for refusing to subsidize someone else's dreams with your own sacrifice.